Max Verstappen did not lose Monaco on pace. He lost it before he even got the chance to fight. A four-time world champion started on the front row, ready to attack one of the most important races of Red Bull's season. But on the formation lap, something already felt wrong. The pre-start was terrible. The engine had no consistency. Then, when the lights went out, it dropped dead. Lap 1. 0 points. And a championship gap growing so fast that Red Bull may already be watching the title slip away. But this failure exposed something even bigger than a broken engine. Because Verstappen has already called the new Formula 1 rules artificial. He has attacked the battery-heavy racing. He has warned that the sport is becoming less about pure driving, and more about energy games. And then Monaco gave him the perfect evidence. A front-row start ruined by Red Bull's first in-house engine project, on a weekend loaded with power unit controversy, tougher FIA checks, and a rulebook Verstappen clearly does not trust. Mercedes is pulling away. Antonelli is leading the championship. Red Bull is collapsing under reliability pressure. And Verstappen is no longer just fighting rivals. He is fighting the future of Formula 1 itself. Subscribe to the channel. Red Bull did not arrive in 2026 expecting an easy season. But they did expect control. That was the whole point of the project. For years, Red Bull had built its modern empire with ruthless precision. The team knew how to build championship cars. It knew how to execute under pressure. It knew how to turn Max Verstappen's aggression into trophies, records, and fear across the paddock. But the engine, the deepest and most dangerous part of the car, had always depended on a partner. That changed in 2026. Red Bull stepped into a new identity with Red Bull Ford powertrains, building its own power unit for the first time in its Formula 1 history. It was bold. It was ambitious. It was the kind of decision that says, we do not just want to win now, we want to control the future. But control comes with a brutal condition. When it works, you own the glory. When it fails, you own the failure. And after Monaco, that failure was impossible to hide. Because this was not a midfield retirement. This was not a quiet mechanical issue from the back of the grid. This was Max Verstappen, a four-time world champion, starting second at Monaco, one of the most valuable grid positions of the season, and losing the race before he had even been given a real chance to attack. That is why this moment cut so deeply. Red Bull had finally put Verstappen somewhere dangerous again. Not dangerous for him. Dangerous for everyone else. On the front row, close enough to pressure the leader, close enough to turn the opening seconds into a fight, close enough to make Mercedes uncomfortable. And then the car betrayed him. On the formation lap, the first warning arrived. Something was not right. A driver like Verstappen feels that before anyone else understands it. He feels the hesitation. The strange response. The lack of consistency. The engine note that does not match what it should be doing. The car may still be moving, but the trust has already started to crack. That is the hidden terror of a power unit problem. Fans see the result when the car slows. The driver feels the failure before it becomes visible. And Verstappen felt it. The pre-start was terrible. There was no consistency. Then the race began, and the engine dropped dead. Those words are devastating. The engine dropped dead. Not slightly weak. Not just down on power. Not something the driver could manage for a few laps while the team searched for a setting. Dead? At Monaco, from the front row, that is more than a technical issue. It is a humiliation. Because Monaco offers almost no second chances. If you qualify near the front, you protect that gift with everything. If the car fails there, it does not just cost points. It steals one of the few weekends where track position could have protected Red Bull from the weaknesses it had been carrying all season. And those weaknesses were already serious. The new 2026 regulations changed Formula 1 in a way that hit Red Bull at the worst possible time. The cars became far more dependent on electric deployment. Energy management became central to attacking and defending. Active aerodynamics changed how the car behaved on the straights and in different racing situations. The power unit was no longer just about raw combustion power, but about how consistently the hybrid system could deliver over a lap, a stint, and a full race. For some teams, this opened the door. For Red Bull, it exposed the floor beneath them. Because building a brand new in-house power unit under a brand new rulebook is one of the hardest things a Formula 1 team can attempt. It is like learning to fly a new aircraft while designing the engine at the same time, and everyone else is already in the air. And the first signs were worrying. In Bahrain testing, Red Bull suffered a cooling issue linked to an overheating intercooler. Isaac Hadjar stopped on track after just 20 laps. At the time, Red Bull could say it was testing, and testing is where problems are meant to appear. But then the problems followed them into the season. Australia brought more engine-related trouble. China brought a coolant fault for Verstappen himself while he was running 6th. And after that race, Red Bull admitted the issue was not only the failure. The overall package had significant shortcomings. That phrase matters. Significant shortcomings. It means the problem was not one loose wire, one unlucky part, or one isolated failure that could be solved overnight. It meant Red Bull was fighting the entire concept. The car had balance problems. It was slow in corners. It hurt its tires too quickly. The engine could show strength in short bursts, but it could not sustain the same deployment levels as Mercedes over a full stint. That is a terrible combination in this new era. Because in 2026, a car does not just need speed. It needs repeatable speed. It needs to be strong on the lap that matters, and then keep being strong when the battery state changes, when the tires age, when the heat rises, when the driver needs power not once, but again and again and again. If the car gives you 1 lap of hope and 10 laps of compromise, you are not fighting for a championship. You are surviving. And Verstappen is not built to survive. He is built to attack. That is where his anger with the new rules becomes so important. Because he is not simply angry that Red Bull is struggling. That is the easy version. The version rivals can dismiss. The version that makes him sound like a champion who liked the rules when he was winning and hates them when he is not. But Verstappen has been attacking the racing itself. He has criticized the battery-heavy style. He has described the cars as artificial. He has compared the way drivers pass and repass each other with energy boosts to a game. He has suggested that the racing no longer rewards the same kind of pure driver skill. That is not a normal complaint about understeer. That is a challenge to the identity of Formula One. Because Formula One wants the 2026 regulations to represent progress. Cleaner technology. More hybrid power. More manufacturer relevance. More complex strategy. A new technical frontier. Verstappen is saying, what if that progress makes the racing feel less real? And Monaco gave his argument a sharper edge. Because when a driver criticizes the rules after finishing lower than expected, people can ignore it. When a driver qualifies second, feels the car is finally coming back to him, then loses the race because the engine dies before the first real battle, the criticism becomes harder to separate from the crisis. The rules demand energy management. Red Bull's power unit is struggling with reliability and deployment. Verstappen hates the way the cars race. Mercedes is thriving under the same regulations. Antonelli is pulling away in the championship. And Red Bull is left trying to explain why its new era keeps breaking. That is not one problem. That is a chain reaction. And every link makes the next one more dangerous. If the engine is unreliable, Red Bull has to run safer. If Red Bull runs safer, Verstappen loses performance. If Verstappen loses performance, he has to push harder elsewhere. If he pushes harder in a car with balance and tire problems, the tires suffer. If the tires suffer, strategy becomes harder. If strategy becomes harder, the points gap grows. And when the points gap grows, every criticism sounds louder. That is how a technical issue becomes a crisis of belief. And belief is the most valuable thing Red Bull has built with Verstappen. For years, Verstappen believed that if he put the car in the right place, it would answer. If he attacked, it would hold. If he took the risk, the team would back him with a machine capable of turning risk into reward. That trust made him terrifying. He could drive with absolute commitment because the system around him had earned it. Now, that system is shaking. And Monaco showed it in the most painful way possible. A front row start. A chance to fight. A car that could not respond. That image does more damage than a normal retirement because it tells the driver, even when we give you the position, we may not be able to give you the race. For Verstappen, that is unacceptable. He does not need a perfect car to fight. He has dragged difficult cars higher than they deserved before. He can manage imbalance. He can handle pressure. He can take a narrow window and make it look bigger. But he cannot fight with no power. He cannot attack with an engine that drops dead. He cannot trust a project that keeps turning hope into 0 points. And that is why the championship table now looks so brutal. Red Bull is not slightly behind. Verstappen is far behind the leader. Mercedes is far ahead in the constructors' fight. Ferrari is stronger. McLaren is still relevant. The old Red Bull aura has cracked, and every weekend without a response makes it harder to rebuild. This is the danger of a regulation reset. It does not care what a team used to be. It does not care how many titles the driver has won. It does not care that Red Bull dominated previous eras. A reset asks one question. Did you understand the future before everyone else? Right now, Mercedes looks like it did. Red Bull looks like it is still trying to translate it. And Verstappen sounds like he does not even agree with the language. That is the deepest problem. Because even if Red Bull improves the car, even if it finds reliability, Even if it starts scoring stronger points, Verstappen's criticism of the rules will not automatically disappear. He is not only asking for more performance. He is asking for racing that feels worthy of Formula One. He wants the fight to be decided by commitment, braking, car control, and skill, not by a cycle where one driver boosts past, runs out of energy, and gets passed back when the other car has saved more battery. Some fans may see that as strategy. Verstappen sees it as artificial. And whether people agree with him or not, his opinion matters because he is one of the defining drivers of the modern era. When a driver like that says the racing feels wrong, the sport cannot simply pretend nothing happened. But the timing makes everything political. Mercedes has no reason to demand big changes. The new regulations are working for them. Antonelli is leading. Their power unit appears strong. Their package looks consistent. Ferrari may want adjustments, but it is competitive. McLaren can live inside the new order. Red Bull is the team in pain. So every time Verstappen speaks, the paddock hears two things at once. A champion defending the soul of racing. And a champion whose team is losing. That dual meaning is what makes the situation explosive. If he stays quiet, Formula One continues in a direction he dislikes. If he speaks, rivals can accuse him of complaining because Red Bull no longer dominates. That is a trap. And Verstappen is walking straight into it because, for him, the issue is too important to ignore. Monaco simply made the trap visible. Before the race, Red Bull had something to sell. Progress. Second on the grid. A driver who said he felt more like himself again. A possible turning point. After the start, all of that disappeared into one failure. No race. No points. No momentum. No proof that the project was recovering. Just another painful example of a car that cannot yet be trusted. And that brings Red Bull to the question nobody inside the team wants to face too loudly. What if the problem is not just reliability? What if the problem is that the entire package was built for a regulation era that Mercedes has understood better and Verstappen does not respect? That is a much darker question. Reliability can be repaired, at least sometimes. A bad concept is harder. A driver's lost belief is harder still. Because once belief breaks, every improvement has to prove itself twice. The team says the issue is fixed. The driver waits to feel it. The data says temperatures are stable. The driver remembers Monaco. The engineers say deployment is better. The driver remembers China. The team says the project is moving forward. The driver looks at the points gap. That is the mental burden Red Bull now carries. And it is heavy. Because Verstappen is not in the early stage of his career, where patience can be sold as part of the journey. He is a champion in his prime. He is not supposed to spend a season waiting for a first-year engine program to stop bleeding points while a teenager at Mercedes builds a title lead. That is why this season feels dangerous for Red Bull beyond the standings. It threatens the team's identity. Red Bull used to be the place where Verstappen's certainty became the team's certainty. His confidence radiated through the garage. The car gave him the tools. The team sharpened them. The results reinforced the belief. Now the confidence is moving in the opposite direction. The car fails. The driver questions the rules. The team searches for answers. The rivals grow stronger. The championship moves away. And the pressure returns to the garage heavier than before. That is how a dominant team becomes vulnerable. Not all at once. Piece by piece. A test failure. A reliability issue. A public criticism. A coolant fault. A poor result. A front row engine failure. A zero in Monaco. Then suddenly, the story has changed. Red Bull is no longer the team others fear. It is the team everyone is analyzing. And Verstappen is no longer simply the hunter. He is the champion demanding answers from his own machine and from the sport around him. That is why this first part of the story matters so much. Before we even talk about the full championship damage, before we talk about the politics of the new rules, before we talk about whether Formula One will listen to Verstappen, the foundation is already clear. Red Bull took control of its future by building its own engine. But now that future is failing in the most public way possible. And Verstappen's fury is not only about one dead engine at Monaco. It is about what that dead engine represents. A rulebook he does not trust. A car he cannot fully believe in. A championship slipping away. And a team that may have gambled everything on a future it has not yet mastered.